Perfect podcast. Welcome to the Almost Perfect podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we are learning from Conrad Koch. Now, Conrad is a comedian, he is a satirist, and he is a ventriloquist. And you definitely know his most famous puppet, Chester Missing, because Chester has been on your screens, whether it's on your phone, on your laptop, or on your TV, you have no doubt seen Chester Missing. Hell, the puppet has interviewed presidents and taken the piss out of pretty much everyone in power in South Africa, as well as Conrad himself. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation because I know I sure did. Like, one of the benefits of moving to Cape Town has been that I've gotten to chill with Conrad more. Like, we used to be Twitter friends, and we have chatted before on this podcast when we did it via remote vibes. But yeah, lately I've been able to chat to him. We've had coffee together, we chat after shows, and he's always giving phenomenal advice, which is why I wanted to sit down with him on the podcast today so that he can give that advice to you, especially if you're an up-and-coming comedian. But I'm sure many creatives can get a lot out of this because we talk about the economics of making it work as an artist in South Africa when the majority of people just don't have a lot of money. Like, that is the reality. We live in the most unequal country in the world. So we get deep into the weeds of what it takes to actually economically survive in that climate as an entertainer who isn't just trying to appeal to that middle-class audience. But at the same time, Conrad knows, hey man, I gotta appeal to that middle-class audience a little bit. Gotta make that paper, baby. So we get into what it actually takes for Conrad to put a show together. He's done many different kinds of shows, ones that deal with race and other ones that, are just funny, are just jokes. Like, you can take your children to those shows. And I think it's given him a lot of longevity by being able to be so dynamic and understanding that, hey, sometimes you actually need to cater to the crowd. So this is a fascinating chat. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, like I said at the beginning, and I hope you enjoy it too. But before we get into it, I do need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by you, which means you can support it by going to patreon.com/almostperfect, where you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. And with that out the way, here it comes. It's the Almost Perfect podcast with Conrad Koch. So, how are you living, Conrad?
I'm good, Bob. Busy working on a new show. So literally,
You're always working on a new show.
I am, but it's a cycle. So it's every year. I start with I get a concept, and then I start from kind of late in the year until about June, and then I do the first of the show, and then I tweak it the whole time. But that's when the show has to be ready at Ground Culture in Cape Town, and then I do National Arts Festival, and then dates just every second weekend I'm in another city, and get the show good, and then record the content, put it out, and then start again the next year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you actually are one of the people who, you're one of the hardest working comedians, not just on stage time, but in terms of like actually putting content out there. Like, even I watched Despicable Hee, the Rama Puppet, and it's all on your YouTube.
Yeah.
But like, obviously that's an investment, and you're putting this stuff out on YouTube. It's no longer going on like Showmax or Netflix and stuff like that. So what's the strategy here?
So I've been sort of delaying and holding back. It's a bit of a hello kitty, you someone's content. It's gonna be the best content. A cat, hey, it's a Koch and it's a pussy. There we go. Bob. Here's the jokes.
Yeah, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, Mr. So Mr. Dixon's people listening is this puppet of mine is a school teacher. So the strategy is you kids. The strategy is that what I'm doing has got international legs. And I know that because I've taken it to Canada, 5-star reviews, Australia, Edinburgh. Well, Edinburgh was complicated in that I've got two versions of what I do. For people who've never seen us, it's weird that we're in a room talking to each other and we know each other well, but people may not know.
Of course.
So I'm a ventriloquist. My puppet Chester Missing is well known for talking to politicians on South African TV on his own Muppet style. But in the show, I'm a ventriloquist, which is where you talk to a puppet. And I need to say that because a lot of South Africans don't know what a ventriloquist is. They just have no idea because it's like
Yeah.
I'm like the only one. So it's like, why would they not? So what I there are two tiers of what I do. The one is like a political commentary, where Chester's more like on his own. He rants about what happened with the ANC this week, and the other is like live theater-y things that you've just referred to, and it's more like a sort of, for lack of examples, like if you've seen Jeff Dunham, imagine like a very left-leaning version of that. So, and like so, it's like stand up with puppets. So
Yeah.
each puppet I've got on stage is a different kind of stand-up voice, and they each do jokes about different stuff. And so, what I've been doing for about just about a decade, I'd say, is building something that can really be understandable by the world. The problem is I live here, and what works there and works here are two completely different things. So look how Trevor Noah doesn't do his South African shows overseas,
yeah.
and he doesn't do his overseas shows here. He'll tour everywhere. He'll go to Bangkok, but he won't come here.
But he also does localized things though. Like,
But when he comes here, he does a show for here.
yeah, he works with local comedians to shape something together.
Shape something together, exactly, yeah. So, but the reason we do that is because South Africans are very particular in their taste of what they enjoy. They have to hear us in the jokes, and there's some jokes that are crossover. Like I had a show, some material go viral, like proper crazy viral on Facebook and Instagram.
Imagine the Americans, because you did mention something about that the other day, but I imagine also because you take a lot of shots at Trump as well in between things.
I do, so I'll include him, but I'm testing what works, like what travels.
But that's something I find really fascinating about you, is that's how you approach this. It's like, okay, I've got all these jokes, but what's actually working? It's not just about what you enjoy. You are literally crafting stuff for the audience.
Well, so what happened is there was a weird conversation with that. So I created a show in South Africa about 8 years ago that I took to Canada, did very well in Canada with. But I went, how do I extract my South Africanness from this? And the backstory of that was I got into Just for Laughs, the Montreal Comedy Festival, biggest comedy festival in the world.
Yeah.
And I realized, but I'm very South African. I was doing very political stuff. How do I make this international? And I went to New York for 2 weeks, and I just did open mics. You don't get paid, you just do open mics.
Yeah.
It's
like Cape Town.
No, it's worse than Cape Town. It's like it's better and worse in that there's like 10 comedians in the room. That's the only people in the room. It's 3 PM on a Wednesday, and now I'm doing ventriloquism for these a-holes. Like, they're like us.
And especially in New York, like they're gonna hate ventriloquism in particular.
Oh, they hack us art form, and then the puppets doing jokes that for them are like, whoa, that's the edge. You're talking about race and talking about culture, and it's not like.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, we just do it all the time. So they're like, okay, that's all right. In fact, getting them to understand it, because it was dealing with the race. The Charleston shooting had just happened, where a white supremacist shot up a church in Charleston. An African-American comic in New York explained to me, he said, it's like we just had a fist fight, and now you coming here talking about this stuff, and how do you do this? So, and then I did Montreal, and I got by, but it was like my first foray overseas, and was like, whoa, okay, this is where I need to go. So I built a whole show of that, toured it, and then with what I thought, what will they understand outside of here? And you people in comedy, especially Western comedians who live in a world where everyone understands them all the time, because American culture is universal for them. And it's hard to explain to them, yeah, but if I go to freaking East London, Kugompo, and to do a joke, that they're not going to care about
Charlie Kirk.
They're going to care about Charlie Kirk. They're not going to care about, this Iran. They'll vaguely care, but if I talk about South African stuff, they'll care a lot more. So what I've done now is, so we have to shape ourselves for the world. And they go, no, but you just say what you feel funny. What I feel funny is most funny is it scares middle-class audiences and white audiences and overseas audiences. So I have to change what I do for my audience. And they, but that's setting out the art. Say, okay, that's a very privileged, wealthy position to take.
That's the thing. You're also someone who, this is your job. Like, I have the luxury of being like, oh, I'm an artist, man. I can just do whatever jokes I want because I'm earning a salary from a job.
You had a panopticon joke in there. That was spectacular.
Yeah, that one's fun. Like that was one of my favorite jokes at the moment. Like
It's great.
I've got a one man show coming up, and then that's like, but that's also the thing, trying to figure out where to put that and like.
Probably the cleverest bit of South African comedy right now, as far as I've seen. It's
Thank
just
you.
super clever. Yeah, I know it's too clever. It's
But that's the thing I've learned now. Like, so I had the joke, and the joke didn't land because people didn't know what a panopticon was. And then if I just take this whole little detour in the middle of the thing to explain what a panopticon is,
yes,
like
brilliant.
it's then becomes like divergence. Or what's it? Can't even think of the words right now. But misdirection.
Yeah.
Like it's like you don't know it, and then hit you with this line, and it's like because of that tension, because of that build up, the joke works better.
So the way I handle that is because that's anthropology. Michel Foucault,
Yeah,
the
of course.
sociologist, which shapes.
Pedophile, but
Yeah, that's of course.
damn, I'm gonna get demonetized.
Yeah, this guy
YouTube
saying
the first
Michel
time.
Foucault, it's over. Bob Perfect is out. So I mean, my jokes are informed by that same stuff.
Yeah.
But I just want to explain it's because there's too much in where I'm going to explain. I need this joke to work at the corporate gig I did on Friday for people who don't care about, they care about the impact of it. So the impact of it is like when people of color change their accent when they arrive at work. Code switching is the result of the panopticon. And panopticon, and then people watching fuzz is the idea that we're all being watched by society. So we have to perform a version of ourselves that is acceptable to society. And our phones have exacerbated that. So we start watching ourselves and start performing a version of ourselves that we think will be palatable. Of course, that applies to people who have racist thoughts and don't say them. And it makes us less honest and so on. So
yeah.
So I'll do material about that. And I think that a lot of that has that's great for international connections, and the observational comedy that come out of that is really juicy. But the fact that you'll actually explain it is beautiful.
Well, for me, the end point was Love Island, essentially, because I watched Love Island with my girlfriend, and I do find it incredibly fascinating because I'm looking at it through like a sociological lens, because I'm looking at it at like, oh, what does this say about race and class and power and how we all present ourselves online and in real life because of the way it's all structured. And
so the show now is about. The show I'm doing now is about that. So it's called Chester's Got Talent. So each year I try a different
angle,
yeah, and to go, how do I find the middle ground between my ability to break down social issues that are accessible or just stuff and say just slightly more edge than your average kind of cutesy, safe ventriloquist, but still safe enough you can bring your kids to the show, because that's where we live. We live in a place where I do have to be able to have a 12-year-old in the front row who'll enjoy the show, but give the adults something to think about.
Yeah,
like a cartoon. You know, a cartoon.
Like SpongeBob SquarePants has so many adult jokes in it that you don't even catch when you're a kid.
Exactly, that's the thing. So this show is called Chester's Got Talent. It was meant to be called Puppets Got Talent, but Chester wouldn't do the show. Chester, of course, people know is my most famous character, so who has a TV on his own and a big social media following. So it's the puppets have to compete in a talent contest, and the audience is the judges, and they don't like that, especially Chester, who's very famous and doesn't need this at all. But I'm like, we need to make it in the world, and if maybe get ready for America's Got Talent one day, maybe. And then he's like, then he'll do stand up, and then at the end he comes out and just breaks down how we perform for society, and we are the fake version of ourselves, and we stop saying what really needs to be said because we're scared of how it'll be received, and so we live this dishonest world. And then my old man puppet, he does ventriloquism, and then to take the piss out of my ventriloquism.
Because that sounds fun.
The ostrich sings, and then he sings Marie Makeba's song,
Hillary,
the
right?
click song. Hilton now.
Hilton.
He was a woman, but now he's a man. I know.
Controversial. Dave Chappelle's gonna make jokes about it.
You. I know. Well, it's more like what happened was, this is another example of the kind of calibrating, is that, why wouldn't you, as a guy, why wouldn't you have a female puppet? As long as you don't make it super raunchy and display it as too... It's where it gets complicated, almost like female face. And people go, oh, you're overthinking it. And it would be funnier as a female puppet. It used to be a female puppet. But the problem is that when you travel around the world and you go to, say, Edinburgh Festival, times change. And if you invest in a character, and this is the basis of that character, in 20 years' time, you want that character to still work. And if I just make the puppet a guy, and just do the same kind of jokes. Slightly less stuff that I can do, but there are lots of ways I can go further now.
Yeah.
As guy to guy. It just means I know the puppet will have longevity, the character will have longevity.
I mean,
so
you've kind of dealt with this before.
oh, just as being black, yeah. So
Yeah.
as that was like, if this puppet was just white to start with, it would, because his race wasn't really. It had powerful black audiences, and then it was, because that's who most of my fans were and still are, because of who lives in the country. They're just more black.
Naturally.
Yeah. If you're pulling a diverse audience, lots of people just pull white people, but or black people, but I pull very diverse audience, and so Chester being black when he was black on TV, his strength, or live on stage, was him nailing me for the legacy of apartheid, my own racism, and so on.
But
So
you've been able to do that with him being white.
exactly. So if you just stayed white, just been white the whole time, it was an interesting conversation, and it's
Well,
fun,
yeah. How
but
much did that Tia Malefe piece like affect you?
Oh, so the people are not following.
Oh,
So Chester is a puppet. If he's go Google this,
Imaginary.
Go to the Wikipedia page and get the short version of it. Chester's an imaginary friend of mine who's very successful, and he literally interviews the president and so on and so forth on TV. And he was brown, but the joke wasn't him being brown. So we weren't like mocking black accents or identity for white people. So yes, it's blackface because I'm a white guy making brown, but it's not blackface as in ha ha ha, look how stupid black people are. There's an author who I have my own opinions on, because he's not really open to the complexity of how to write satire. And I got to know him and actually invited him to come to a writing session for Late Night News, and he evaded like crazy. Understanding the complexities of South Africa is not something social commentators often want to grapple with. That when you arrive on the scene, I have black fans who are angry Chester's white now, because Chester being white is leaning into whiteness, which it is. It's so that I can go to Canada to do comedy. If he's black, I can't, because the under conversation, they won't. It's not that I'll get cancelled. They just have no idea what I'm saying.
Sure, they don't even know when the conversation starts.
No, they don't. So like Chester had this joke where he squeezes his face is very squishy.
Yeah.
This happened in Regina in Canada. He squeezes his face. He's a white puppet at that time. He squeezes his face and he goes, "That's the face racists make when they get black neighbors." And it's a funny joke.
Yeah.
In Canada, they cuck themselves. These old Canadians had no idea. They're very liberal. They had no idea what the joke was. The people from Toronto at the back were killing themselves because they know lots of people of color, or there were people of color. So the conversation was understandable.
Especially because they're in the city, so yeah.
Yeah. So Tio said, Rhoda Osiame wrote a article on American-based websites about the concept of, if I had a white puppet who was progressive saying the same things to me, that would do something. And then I did a show where Chester roasted me for blackface, and then that guy came to the show and was blown away by it. And so for a while, that's what was happening. Chester would call me out. It would be part of the show. It just became too difficult for white people to watch. So in other words, it just, black people would be fine.
I mean,
white
I
people
hear
would
you
be nailed
because-
for racism too hard. So either had to stop Chester being brown, or just completely lose white audiences. So Chester, and also I was kind of done with the conversation. It is morally
I mean,
problematic.
you had also done it for a while, like with Chester, where, you used to be way more political on stage, like, and say way riskier things, I guess. But
I did, yeah.
at this point, I guess it's not just about like security and money and that. I also imagine artistically, there's a part of you who wants to just expand and just do some fun stuff sometimes, instead of always just being like, white people suck, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
We stole everything.
literally.
It's a very complicated dynamic, South Africa, in that I think that we have this weird, even now I sort of check myself, because it's so easy for me to lean into super progressive, these things go way further.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a twofold problem when it comes to talking about race politics and justice, because there's been no economic justice for black people. It's insane. It's, most unequal country on earth. So for people of color, should I say. But the way it goes with comedy is that white audiences are fine with not hearing about what apartheid gave them, and black audiences or people of color have gone through so much, they just want fun too.
Yeah.
They actually like, can we just have fun? They'd like a little bit of social commentary, but as long as it stays within the realm of silly, and this guy, Julius Mkhwanazi, following this Madlango, had a tissue stuck to his face, and just silliness, and white audiences are to some degree the same. And so there's this weird meeting of of agreement, which is let's just keep it shallow. And so and in my live shows, it is close to that. So it's also just for my own mental health and so on. Is I've said what I need to say. So what I then did is this is exactly what happened in Edinburgh. Is I created this extremely progressive version of my work that got a really good audience, but they were very like I have struggle heroes and just people who are very progressive, and then everyone else thinks I'm life is because it's good ventriloquism and entertaining is like wow, that really I feel like a bit battered.
Yeah.
So I made a safe version, but then in order
So you
to
made the
fix it,
critics version and the public version.
that's what happened. Then I went, let me go all in on the critics version. Let me go all in. Like, let me go a show where the show's only on race. That's the whole show. It's just Chester and I talking about race for an hour. And I asked my management that I got in the UK, who I no longer have, that should we do the safe show that I've got 5-star reviews with? It's still politically interesting, but it's there's a DJ puppet. There's a
Yeah.
mosquito, you know? Or should we do one and we go all in on race? Oh, no, it's Edinburgh. Go in on race. Is Edinburgh going on race? You know, they're British. So then I go in on race and they had no idea what I was saying. It was like doing a show on feminism in a strip club. Because they're just, and they're not.
I mean, not a bad place to do.
No, that's probably that is where you need to do the show on feminism. The problem is that it's a very hard show. You want to do a show on feminism where there's some people from the strip club and then feminists.
Well, I think the strippers would appreciate it. Maybe
Exactly.
not the audience.
It's at least 50% strippers. You're good. But the problem in Edinburgh is that there just are no people of color. So when you had 2 people of color in the room, it would change the show entirely because they're like, we're getting what you're saying here. But the white people they're not. It's not that they're bad people. They just have no people of color around them versus any white South African, even the most right-wing one.
Even in Oranje.
Even in Oranje, knows more about the story of people of color than your average. And one guy I got up because I made them talk and I asked them what they do. The one guy was a sheep farmer from Yorkshire. And this bra had no idea about colonialism. Like no one had ever I'd say I had no idea, he probably did, but no one had really read him the Riot Act. And so he's a very charming, nice guy who saw himself as progressive. But so what that means is if you tell a joke about some of my best friends are black or I don't see color, those tropes about how white people evade dealing with race, he was unaware of any of that material. So you were like, it was more like a podcast. You know, you were teaching the guy stuff as opposed to going, we all know this. We all know these are the things. Now let's go to where that means. So it's like South Africa is 40 years ahead of the UK when it comes to any conversation on race and justice.
I mean, it feels that way with most countries, to be honest, because like, especially when you're on the internet, on TikTok, on Instagram and that, you just see how ignorant people tend to be about these kind of things. And I mean, it's horrific that we got our education from history just being so violent here. But I do like that in general, South Africa hasn't necessarily shied away from these conversations. Whereas a lot of the racist laws in apartheid were copies from America, from Jim Crow, from all of that. And I guess America is the one country where the race conversation happens a lot, but it seems to lack nuance.
Yeah, it's wild. I just, I did this, I released this content from the last show that's, the joke goes with jokes. The satire goes, the English, it makes it the English in order to focus. If I say white people, it just triggers
broad,
everyone, but everyone knows we mean everyone. So I think there's a level because it's also the Portuguese and the Spanish and the
Dutch,
Germans,
the Dutch East India
Company. But the joke goes, the English stole black people's land, black people's gold. They stole actual black people, and then they started a rumor that black people steal.
Yeah,
and then but now I've got African Americans getting on board, going, so they don't know anything about me. So they're assuming I'm telling the joke to white people, which the joke doesn't work for white people. They have to be majority people of color in the room for that joke to work at all. And of course, then the next bit. So one group get it immediately. African Americans, we're on board. This is great. This is true. We understand the satire. It's not funny. So the black South Africans laughing at it found it funny. So I understand why it's not light, but it's satire. This is how we deal with heavy things. But then you got really stupid comments like, but African and black aren't the same thing. We're black, they're African. Okay, all right. Black consciousness and Steve Biko will argue
Yeah.
one up, one that. So Nelson Mandela is not black. What are you saying? So I get the sense that
But then also as a white person, how do you feel about wading into those kind of conversations, right? Because like you and I are both people who've like read Steve Biko and we understand what Biko Black this essentially is. Where
from
like,
our own perspective, yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. It's like, but we're white, so it's
So
like you can
there's
never
a
really
this is
understand the lived experience.
you can't you can never understand the lived experience, and so for me, it's mainly maintaining that humility as far as you don't understand the lived experience. But the problem is with me is, and I sound like a wanker. I have a master's degree in anthropology, so I'm being very specific when I say that's what I know. You understand the lived experience. So I can't tell you what it felt like to feel racism.
That you can tell,
But I
the
can tell you
sociological.
that lots of black people enforce racism. Tons of black people enforce anti-black racism. So now I must just be quiet while I'm watching you
Which is-
collaborate with white supremacy. That's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
but that's the thing. It is a product of white supremacy. So the root cause is always the white
Supremacy, yeah. That's where it's the whole. That's why black exists. So
Yeah.
it, the concept of it, at least, because it is really just a political position. As far as actual, we know these things. So what I got to do is go in with humility. It can't be the way I handle this. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I've had some very aware black people telling me I'm getting it right. So firstly, be humble. So be open to learning. Be open. And I got it slightly wrong in a response on Facebook. But the concept is that it's something that black people often struggle to say because they'll get shut down. I also get shut down, and what the Americans forget is that I live in the most unequal country on earth, literally. So my fans are really poor. So in America, you'll go viral and you'll sell out a show. If I go viral with this here, I'm not going to sell out a show because the people who like it aren't the ones who have money to buy tickets to shows.
And
That's
also,
the whole problem.
like it's also like people in South Africa obviously live all over, and shows aren't everywhere.
No, there's that too.
essentially.
That's another thing.
Like-
I'm solving that problem now with this next tour. I'm going everywhere. So instead of just staying in Joburg and Cape Town and Durban, I'm going to go to like Welkom and Bloem and
Do you think there's
Johannesburg.
like actual financial value? Because obviously there's social value and like just personal value and going to all these different places, especially someone like you who has a large fan base and has people everywhere who want to see you. But do you think the finances will like work out?
Well, it has been in that. So what I've done in order to solve this problem is the first thing I've done is make sure I do mainly safe, fun material. I might do political, but the political will be very fun. So if a fun thing like Helen Ziller was rowing in a boat, if that thing of the thing in Soweto, and then there's another video of them making the video, and there's a black guy pulling her in the boat, and that's the DA. That is a DA. Helen's not actually rowing; she has a black guy pulling her. That's the DA. And then the ANC, of course, did the ANC, which is the next day they went and fixed the pothole. So we just live in this. No one's eventually, it's just absurd. So I'll do fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then I'll make sure that I add it in the actual show. It's a tiny, like I might have one joke that really pushes the political boundary. But other than that, it's all silliness and fun. And by doing that, I give people an opportunity of exposure to me. The problem is people have no idea what a ventriloquist is. Like they have no idea. I chatted to a venue organizer yesterday who asked me if I'm using hypnosis. So like they just have no idea. Tuli Madonsela once asked me to explain how Chester talks. I mean, she's very clever. She doesn't think it's... She knows it's like a trick, but just what's the trick? Versus an American audience or a British audience knows, they may not know the details of how to do
But
it,
they've
but
seen
the
it
concept
before.
of ventriloquist is part of their culture. So in order to get an audience there, I put out lots of fun socials. The payback isn't the same as a comedian who speaks to a wealthy audience, but it definitely, the numbers are up, and last year's show did well. It just didn't, the economy's tanked a bit because of Trump. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to more places and just putting out the socials, and it's really fun. My fans are great. They're really awesome. They Chester South says Kabeja a lot, right?
Yeah,
Just
and
Futsek and Kabeja, those is two words. And so people were like, I had an Uber driver in Joburg once stop. They were on the road, they stopped. They had Uber driver energy. There's an assumption, the black guy driving a Corolla. But anyway, he was there where Uber stops. So that's why he stops. He pulls down his window and shouts, Kabeja, and then just keeps driving. That was the whole conversation. It's really fun.
But then with social media, so once again, you're someone who works fucking hard at this shit. You are recording everything. You're coming up with content like every day. How much of that was like, how much did other people tell you? Because, like, on the internet at the moment, especially, like, I'm someone who listens to lots of podcasts about comedy and that. And obviously, I'm sure you know who Barry Katz is. He's was a
No.
manager. He's a manager in America, like Louis C.K., Chris Rock, a bunch of people early on in that. But like his podcast is interesting because I kind of hate him.
You better.
Like he's just Islami manager type basically. But he
stereotype.
yeah, he is the perfect manager stereotype. But he's someone who's like, you gotta post like 6 times a day. And like there's so much of this advice coming out like these days. And you're someone, even when I moved to Cape Town, you were like, yeah, well, why don't you, just try to do videos about this and that. And I'm like, I hear you, and like there's a part of me that wants to do it, but there's also a part of me that, like, with the panopticon thing where it's like, how much does the algorithm then shape what I do? Because if something gets successful, then that's now my lane, like, in a way, if that makes sense, right? Like now I'm gonna start chasing those opinions and those things because it worked before, whereas other things haven't been working necessarily. So how much does that all factor into like how you approach things and what you do?
It's a very difficult balance. And again, that's a lot of what the show is about. So the concept of the show is Chester's going to go, here's the jokes. I give Chester a list of jokes. And he goes, I'm going to do these shitty jokes. And they're very safe, silly jokes. Bafana. I mean, it's a stupid name for a sports team because it means boys. It'd be a better name for a gay nightclub. At least then someone would score. It's a safe. Yeah.
Okay, before you carry on, how much of your joke writing is based on like the fact that you went to a magic school? Because like a lot of what you do is very much the magic trick of comedy.
I guess it's just, I don't know, my joke writing's based on it. What my joke writing does is go for what I know a South African audience will go with.
Okay.
What they'll click with. I think that's just stage time and just how my brain works. Magic school maybe a little bit because we read those old school lines, like those hack kind of ladies, gentlemen, and everyone. That's actually what you meant to say. But it's sort of like a jokey jokes. But I find South Africans do like jokey jokes.
Yeah.
And it works well with my
one-liners
style.
do
Yeah,
great,
just one. Like my style works well with it because I set up puppet finishes line. Chest in particular, the other characters have slightly different strategies. So, now I've lost where I was going.
Sorry, we were talking about the impacts of posting on.
Oh yeah, impacts of posting. So what happened with me is that I kind of ignored socials to my detriment until then. In lockdown, I was doing it. I did well on Twitter, and then learned that was a total waste of time.
Well, that was my problem for years.
That's how I got Twitter. To know you, is Twitter. Yeah,
literally, it's both of us piling on Gareth Cliff.
Yeah. Still do. Those jokes have made a comeback this week.
Oh, I don't even know the news, but I'm so out of it these days.
He's such a douche. No, he's still posting things, so you can still say his name. That old Twitter thing was a total waste of time. I have 400,000 followers, and I still post there, but they don't come to shows. Instagram and Facebook come to shows, and TikTok. So what happened during lockdown is TikTok popped for me, and I had no idea that it would. So I posted a thing that I put on Facebook, and then that did well enough, not crazy well. Just got up to like 7,000 followers, views, and I was like, oh.
That's the thing with TikTok. They entice you with that one video that just like skyrockets.
But then I leaned into it, and I got 300,000 followers in 3 months. So it works. Like you can.
I've heard,
yeah. And I did it by doing Chester on the street. So he'd go on his own, and then I'd ask. I have one joke that the joke was literally. So just to balance it out, so it doesn't sound like everything's about race. I had a joke that went, "What do you call someone who loses their mother's Tupperware?" Dead. That's the joke. And there's 3 of them in a little scene. I filmed it at Cavendish Square. The people I told the joke to, there were couples, like just family looking vibes. There was a middle-aged black couple, young black teens, Muslim auntie. So, and Muslim auntie looked sort of like Cape Malay, maybe. I don't know who she is, but she looked like she's sort of pan the world sort of thing. So if you were from Malaysia, you could relate to this woman, is what I'm trying to say. And the rest just looked like you're in South Africa. And this video went viral. So it popped in my biggest followers for
I mean,
a
that
while
is
on
a
TikTok.
universal joke.
My biggest followers are Kuala Lumpur, and they were arguing in Malaysian. They were saying, "I asked my mother this," and tagging things. Then I had another joke that got like 2.5 million views, and then I got another joke that went, "How many racists does it take to make a cup of coffee? None. Racists don't deserve coffee." And then a follow-up joke on that, and that hit 9 million views on TikTok. But that wasn't ventriloquism. So
Yeah.
I got a very big audience fast, but I never understood how to get TikTok audiences into shows. TikTok has now made it easier to do, because the problem with having followers in Kuala Lumpur is, well, now what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're there. That's
I mean,
great.
this is why people used to go to Japan, because the stats said,
Go to Japan.
like,
But the problem here was firstly that it wasn't ventriloquism, it was this character. So
Yeah.
they did the concept that you can come see this thing live is not an immediate jump. And it's something I've done, a mistake I've started make. I think I've made is allowed Chess to become very big on his own. And then you go, but now what happens in the show? And you know, and literally had one client go, but what do you actually do? It's like ventriloquism. I don't know what that is.
yeah, because people think it's puppetry more
think it's
than, but
puppetry,
it's
yeah.
both. Well,
It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, it is puppetry in that situation. So I post more videos of me doing ventriloquism now. So it was really gratifying that this week one of those did like hit 2.5 million. It's hitting towards 3 million views on the internet now. So that just reminds people this is what you're coming to watch, and then put some safe stuff as well in there. And that's how you turn that ship. So this thing of giving people what they want, you balance it. So firstly, I've now paid. This is a terrible way of saying it, but I did a whole show calling out my racism. That got onto ITV. It cost me money. I paid money to do it, and I gave a significant amount of the proceeds to the Katrada Foundation, who fight racism. So
And I gave Chess an award for it.
and I gave Chess the award for it. So I've done some dues paying. I'm not saying I don't still have work to do as a white South African, or that will never go away, but I've paid some dues. I've pissed off the right wing on a level that they phoned my wife and threatened her. They cut off my career as much
I'm
as they can.
surprised why
lose
you
work.
haven't faced the same stuff that Daniel did. Like,
But I did.
But you did,
but
but
not quite in that. I when it gets too hot, I go another route. I kept it purely framed as jokes, and then I'd mix in other jokes, and I would nail the ANC as well.
yeah.
So the fact that I'm really nailed the ANC, they'll go, "Oh, you're an ANC puppet." It's like, but I told them they're corrupt in Lutuli House to
their
Mantashi's
faces, yeah.
face. Well, have you done that? Like, you know. So I had the spokesperson of the ANC on SABC in the morning once with Sakina, and then Sakina, she goes, the spokesperson, Mahlengi, says, "Oh, you got to be grateful to the ANC, Chester. We gave you the democracy that's to allow the freedom to say these jokes." And Chester goes, "Yeah, because you produce all the jokes." And so they can't avoid to the right wing, like hardcore. If you even admit apartheid happened, you're now an ANC puppet. But guys, the best way to defeat the ANC is actually to admit that apartheid gave you advantages, because then you take that stick away from them. Because now we can go, but now we've admitted it. Now we're going to talk about how you've screwed up fixing what apartheid did in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because there's real conversations to be had on both sides.
Exactly. They don't want to admit that. So the way I found through it is to make sure that I balance what I'm saying, and have significantly shown that I've now contributed to the conversation on racism in South Africa. And now I feel like I'm not going to have that, but now I'll put a thing on it in the show, as opposed to it being about the show being about it.
I mean, but that's also the thing. As an artist, you can't keep treading the same waters all the time.
And it's problematic. I mean, as a white South African, to like Ben, that was a joke in the show on racism, is he'd say, I say, "No, here you go. I go, what do you want me to do? Apologize for apartheid?" And he goes, "Yes, do it." So I apologize. "I'm sorry about apartheid. See that? Fuck all happened. Give your house to Tabo." And they go, and then I go, he went, "You benefited from apartheid, and now you're benefiting from talking about benefiting from apartheid. You're the only guy I know who's benefited from apartheid twice." And then he's got some follow-up jokes on that. But so if I talk about race, I'm benefiting from racism.
Well, that's a thing that I struggle with myself, right? With creating content online. Because even the other day, I did a little ranty video that's kind of taken off because it's me being a white guy talking about, you know, things that happen in the city of Cape Town. And so like I automatically know that like because I'm going against type here in some ways, that people are going to give me props. Like there's lots of creators at the moment, or one in particular who's like quite popular because he's white and saying things that black people have been saying forever. And I don't know, like for me personally, like that is a thing that like I struggle with, where I'm just like, it's also why like I guess I've gotten less political with my stuff or less race based with things as time's gone on, because I'm just like, I don't want to just get props for saying this because I'm white,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that's a massive problem. I actually had it the other day with at a corporate gig with this like a corporate speaker. She's black, and I just said the name of a economist. His name's Duma Krabule, and because I said his name right, she stopped the conversation. Oh, you said, I said, why are you doing that? I don't give you a hug when you say the word enough. You know, it's also a hard word if you think about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
English is crazy.
it's give it a GH there. So it's just weird. So I think that's the way I do that, destabilize that, is I make my contract is this. The way I see comedy is that we need safe, fun stuff that creates an environment where all South Africans can have a good time. That's what I want to do. I want you to come and have the best time. I have a German mosquito who tells mosquito jokes.
Oh, Gunther.
Yeah, Gunther. Yeah, he's married to a bee. Her name's Honey. You know, it's stupid, silly. He was married to a snail. She had a divorce. She kept the house. I love that joke. It's a snail joke. So there's the show is 99% that, but I'll put one joke in or two jokes that go, this is my position on this conversation. So in other words, I'll go, I'm married to a person of color, so I can never win a fight. I'm like, you stole my dessert. She's like, you stole my land. And that will be the one joke in the show on that. But it just lets you know, this is where I stand on this.
Yeah.
We're done now. I'm going to nail the ANC in 20 minutes time. I will proper nail them. But understand, I agree that this is an unjust country. But we don't have to dwell on it. And the audiences are fine with that. Yes, there is an audience that wants you to scream blue murdered white people the whole time, or scream blue murdered the ANC the whole time. But those are the fringes. Most people want a kind of like a just acknowledgement of what this country's injustice is. But most of the time, they just want to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, especially like in Cape Town with white audiences, I find they do not like when you attack the DA in any way.
No, they don't know how to handle it. I posted a thing now about Jordan Hill Lewis won the DA. He said at the DA, and a few weeks ago, Kagiso Lediche, the comedian, and he said, "Oh yeah, Jonah Hill won the thing." But he doesn't really post a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just cags. I'm stealing a joke. So I posted a picture of Jonah and Jordan, and I said, "Well done to," and it's funny because it's Hill. So
Yeah.
well done to Jonah Hill Lewis on winning the DA. And the white people, they don't look the same at all. I mean, you're quite can't you learn to do decent satire? I was like, dude, it's the softest joke. He looks like Jonah Hill from Timu that would win in a freaking roast. Just admit it.
Literally.
Yes, of course they don't look identical. But just like take the punch and move. You expect me to nail the ANC all the time.
But also, what's it like on your mental health to just have all these comments all day, every day? Because that's also one reason why, like, I don't even want to go viral. Because
Right,
just
it's
like
wild.
every time like a
It's
post
wild.
goes outside of my circle, I'm just like, okay, now I've got to start blocking
Right.
people.
It's wild. And the thing is that there are layers to it. I think it's James Acasto, who said he doesn't have socials. I think it may be him. It was a UK comic who said he's not on socials because he writes for a living. So he knows how to say what he means. Versus people on social media are just, you're
Reactionary.
HR. Well, they are reactionary, but they don't have the so often. So they're people who proper just hate. You have no talent. You should give up.
Yeah.
And this joke's on colonialism. So this has got nothing to do with colonial. I had one of the comments was, "Oh, I thought your lips weren't meant to move." First comment. Next comment. "And this isn't even funny." And my reply was, if you're going to hate on the internet, choose one thing. Go in on that. Or it looks like your problem was what was being said. Because that's, well, I'm back. So people will inevitably go, like a video with 2 million views. It's not funny. It's like, listen, man.
Someone
I
finds it
get
funny.
that you think it's not funny, but it has 2 million views. So surely, statistically, you might be in the minority and you have the freaking, like, humanity to acknowledge that. I see how other people enjoy this joke, but I don't go with it. Fine. But it's not funny. Okay, Dad.
I mean, I do think
it's-
there's a like way deeper conversation to be had there, but yeah, because I mean, I see comedians all the time where I'm like, yeah, that's not funny, but yet there's people laughing, so it's all subjective, I guess.
It's
But
all
yeah.
subjective, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Where it becomes difficult, bro, is when, you know, comedy is a difficult job, especially when you're writing a new show. Like right now, I don't enjoy the first
Yeah,
from
the blank page is horrible, man.
yeah, dude, March until May.
And then you actually
Every
go
year.
and test things. Like that's been what's cool being here, moving here, is because like we knew each other from the internet mostly, and we met once or twice. But then actually seeing how you get up often, and you die, like you
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
eat shit. Like you're
Yeah.
like one of the biggest comedians in the country, and there you are doing a 10-minute set on a Tuesday night. And you're like, in the last 2 minutes, you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll bring an old joke back so that, like
testing.
actually get a
You
laugh.
just don't know. You just don't know. And so, and especially because I got to do a whole show, the slots are often to headline, and I'll go in with like because you just don't know if this thing will fly. If a South African blows, there's a new car. Why did the South African blow on the Swedish car? It's a Volvo Zela. Stupid, but often that stupid cuck, people really enjoy it. It's a
Yeah.
real lift off to some heavier stuff. No, that was like a 4, so it's out. But you got to
So
do
you
it
literally
twice.
think like that. You're like, you need the responses to be what, like 6 or higher, or
Oh, so say okay, yeah. Let me go back to my normals. This is 5. So normally I got a 5. 5's very funny, like
okay,
applause.
yeah.
So now that would be a 2 in that world. If it's below 3, it's out.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
And how many times do you try a joke?
often once, because it depends on the quality. You got to understand. Sometimes it'll like pop a little bit more in a room, and you're like, that was like a 3, but that could be. Let me do it again.
But do you ever like just try and rewrite it so that it works better?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
yeah.
I do. If I think it's
Because I
got
can't
legs.
imagine just trying it. Like, there's some things I've said once, and I've just been like, okay, that was a terrible idea. But I'm like, I'm gonna give this like 5 goes.
Let me
at
give you an
least.
example. I think the concept of uncles in South Africa is a very funny idea. I think
Sure.
the way we call people uncles and the way
Uncle
it's
and auntie
used,
as
uncle
well.
and auntie, it's not even actually your actual uncle. It's
No,
never
like
actually your
in
uncle.
case
and
it
auntie.
Mbulume is
It's just
everyone.
everyone, yeah. So I wrote material this week. I tried it on uncle and auntie. So I'm trying to write very safe, very accessible South African material. Remember, for a long time, I've been writing material that will work anywhere in the world. And this year, I'm writing South African material that's for South Africans. And then I'll go to like Perth and Fringe Festival in Australia and test it. Now this year, I'm writing South African. So I'll write the joke. South Africans love uncles. We love uncles so much. It's actually you actually have to earn being an uncle. If you can use a Phillips screw, if you know what a Phillips screwdriver is, you're an uncle. If you know what type of tampon your wife uses, you're an uncle.
Yeah.
So those jokes, but then a follow
Then your
up jokes.
workshop
Yeah,
punchline.
Then the follow up is we even have another level of uncle. It's called Bali, and if you've ever sat in a camper chair and told other people how to pull up a gazebo, you're a bully. And there's a couple of those. Now there's sections of that which I might keep, but the core concept is not as strong as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
There's for this show, because it's South African and has to really catch fire. Versus I have another joke about Checkers 6060 motorbikes that kills. So that'll stay. And by doing that, it's like a purifying process, like creating an essence. And until I'll take 25 minutes of material, turn it into 10, and that 10 will be
But like, are you never
guaranteed.
Are you never precious about it, or are you fully like a kill your darlings kind of guy?
No, it's got to, no. I try. I'm much better at not being precious about it now. Because
Okay.
now I need a show. This needs to work. If it doesn't work, it's out.
You're like lost permanent essentially.
Yeah, it's got to be funny. I mean, they're the standards. So it's got to be. It's got to feel right that it's within my voice. It's got to feel
With
fun.
the voice of each character.
Of each character. That's the harder part, in that sometimes the characters steal each other's jokes, and that's like a bad thing to do, because then your characters, like, what is it that defines
How
them?
that? Yeah.
Yeah. So making sure the stuff's good enough that it's in my voice and in their voice. And once it passes those tests, and there's sometimes where I'll leave it in and I'm like I'm trying to be clean. I've got a joke about Koch stats just because I think it's hilarious. We have a place called, it sounds like it's Penis Town.
Yeah.
And then it just
Dick City. Like, yeah, in
Dick City.
KZN, we always joke about it.
Big City, yeah. And then, but they got the joke. Then I really go in Deep Sloot in Joburg,
Yeah.
and then Kimberley Big Hole. I just connect them all together. So that's on the edge because I want you to bring your kid. I want you to be able to bring your kid to my audience show. So now I have to frame it in a way that isn't too crude, but still does the joke. So that kind of stuff is.
So you're going
quality.
PG-13 now.
Yeah, I know I'm fully PG. I've been for years. Yeah.
I mean, that's dope. But now, an interesting thing you've done recently is you've directed someone else's work.
No work, okay, all right.
Or you're in the you're in the process.
So slow the bus down. No, shame, Nate.
Nate Levenrad.
Nate Levenrad, and Phil
podcast.
also came and got me to just help him out. Phil DeLange, help out liberal white guys, but it's more just sat and had coffee with him twice and just gave him things that I'd say. I mean, I'm all good as him have saying I directed it, but it's very light, kind of just help a brow out. And I probably won't do it again because I can't give the time. I think Nate's awesome and I love where he's going with it. And I did a show on Saturday. It was really good.
Yeah, and then he told me you were like, cut this out, cut that out.
Yeah, just like losers there. Because the core of it's a really beautiful story and he has some great material in there, but he's got that kind of like new comic. The words are poetic, but you need it. But when they,
I mean, I still fuck up with that. Where like the writing's too much on the page, and it's like I'm saying this perfectly crafted sentence, and so that's actually disconnecting me from the audience.
Get to the joke.
There's
Talk
that
to them.
Yeah.
What do they want? They want the addicts.
Whereas you're like wordplay, like because so much, especially for me, like a lot of like George Carlin's like one of the guys. And George Carlin's like tight and like every word is perfect. Like, but it doesn't always, I mean, I guess he's one of the more literary guys, but there's lots of guys who have great jokes, but it just comes across like they're talking to you normally. And like
that's the skill.
Exactly.
That's the skill. So you got to take prose, you got to take what broadly written stuff, narrow it down to half the amount, a third the amount of sentences, and then deliver it like you just thought of it.
Yeah, that's
Adam Bloom. Adam Bloom has got this really good book.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's really good about just how. I mean, it's stuff we are doing already.
What's it called? Something about your comedic genius.
Yeah, unlock your comedy or something.
Yeah, I did read it, and it's with the cue balls and the Bloom pops. He describes like comedy writing in a phenomenal way that's definitely changed the way I do comedy.
Yeah.
Like I also I read that book.
It's really great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're not really looking to direct, but
not at all. So this is probably the last time.
Okay.
I just was like, I like to help people out because I got helped out in life. So I think it's cool. I love the new batch of comics in Cape Town. I think they're really great.
Same. I'm really grateful to move here at this time because I think there's such an awesome community here.
Yeah, so it's dope. So it's really nice to be able to help Nate. It's an honor to be invited. But yeah, it's just I need to focus on building my show, and so that's where my brain will be now. Yeah.
But just like for the audience, essentially, what are you considering when Nate asks you, "Hey, I've got this show. Please help me direct it." Essentially.
Well, the thing is that if you've been doing stand-up a long time, you've written a lot of, I'm a ventriloquist, but a stand-up ventriloquist, you've written a lot of shows, you kind of get a sense of, first of all, what the audience wants. You get a sense of what the impact of choices are going to be on your larger career.
Yeah.
If you're going to swear, I love swearing in comedy, but the problem is we live in South Africa where everything's smaller from a paying audience level.
Yeah.
So versus we have the numbers as far as the amount of people who live here, but the amount of people who can come buy a ticket is much smaller, which means the amount of people interested in very alternate comedy is much smaller than, say, the UK, where you've got very large, same amount of people almost.
But yeah,
but the amount of people who can pay to see a show is
because here people are earning $3,000 a month. Like, how are they going to spend 150 rand on your show?
No one's spending 150 rand on a show. So helping comics make, my first thought is, I always think this, and I've always offered to help comics. I've driven comics around to agents in Joburg and lost work to people that I've helped. Which is, I mean, they've.
That's
I've
what
also
you
got
want
help.
as well, though, right? Like I've always like with Not Quite Right Comedy in Durban, like I basically taught these guys this is how you do gigs. Essentially, I moved to Cape Town. I was like, now it's on you, and they made it way better than like
Yeah,
I had it.
bastards.
No, but I'm like, dope. Like you meant to surpass me. Like
Yeah.
like the whole point of me doing this is so you can be better than
Yeah,
me.
but they're in Durban. I'm talking about people who are getting gigs that I could have got. No, it's all
Yeah.
because it's comes and goes, and the industry gets bigger and so on. So it's all fine. But the two things I often think for up and coming comics is, who is this for? I mean, it's great for it to work on Kloof Street,
Yeah.
but that's that's not a career. You need this material to work in Uppington. It needs to work in Durban, and it needs to work for a diverse age and a race
Yeah.
group. So, I have a material about Bunny Chow, but the amount and the
Dangerous territory.
yeah, it's a wild. But the material, there's a couple of punchlines, but a core concept in it is that when you order a Bunny Chow, you get a little bag of carrots.
Yeah.
That's
Carrot
the Bunny
salad, yeah.
Chow. The curry's aside,
Fuck off.
because that is Bunny Chow.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I hate
The-
that I didn't put that together.
The curry's aside. I'll do that joke in Durban, but the problem is you're from Durban, so you know that.
Yeah.
Most Cape Townians don't know that.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Like I don't like most Cape Townians probably even had a real bunny chow.
Exactly. So it's not worth investing heavily in that joke as a tour joke that you do 100 times.
Sure, but you
Because
keep it in the back pocket for
You
when
keep it
you're
in back
Durban.
pockets, yeah. But so to get them to be aware of what are the choices you're making about where this is going as far as your subject matter, the edge you're pushing, the story you're telling. Are you wanting to take this overseas? Are you wanting to stay here and get theater gigs? What are you trying to do with this? Is the first question I've got, because that decides everything else. And then once we've done that, then there's also your natural voice. Like you should do this. Like I told Nate he should go overseas and so on, because this show he's got is very much like it's really good festival show. It will do well once he's tightened it and stuff. And it's all there. He's got to just do it a few times. The question of then it becomes, how do you tighten it up? And that becomes like dropping them. Like I think new comics always say too much. And they sometimes allow something that's a bit too jarring for the audience to stay in the show that doesn't win them anything. If you're going to offend the
I
audience,
still do that.
have a good reason. I know, but the thing about you is you do alternate comedy and you're committed to that, and that's what you do, and you understand the implications of that. Is that you're
Yeah, I'm gonna
unlikely
be
to
broke from comedy. Like
your comedy's not going to make you if you stayed in South Africa. Or internationally, really, but I think it's something you've got a global voice. You definitely could do well overseas, but the making that choice and realizing where it goes then shapes how much you take out and what subject matter you choose, and then tightening up and making your jokes so that you get to the punchline. Your laugh rate needs to be up there. Cape Town comics, hi, how are you? Stop asking them how they are. Get to the joke. Every MC has to do crowd work. You don't have to do crowd work. In
Yeah.
Toronto, you walk on. You do your 15 minutes of best shit. You get that audience laughing to death. You do 2 minutes of crowd work, and they must be killer. The audience must laugh. Don't go, everyone in the room, who are you and what do you do? Stop that shit. And
I'm with
then
you.
when you're done with that, you don't do any more stage time. You do maybe a minute in between an act, but you get people on fast. That's global comedy culture. Unfortunately, we live in South Africa where no one knows that, and you can't be rude to them. So you're like, I'm taking this moment. I hope someone watches it and then goes. So that kind of stuff is just being aware of, every time the way comedy works is like, I've been doing it for like 30 years. Every time you go on stage, it's like you're 3D printing. You're making something better. So either you're getting fans, you're going to kill with material that you've done a lot. But then you must be
Or
getting
you
new fans,
workshopping.
or you workshopping new material. So make sure you get a new joke working. And when you're doing that, you're adding a layer to the 3D print.
Yeah.
Is what you're printing what you want to print? Because as someone who's now wrote wildly political material that freaked everyone out, the market for that is, I mean, I have massive fans because of it, but it's quite a specific market. Versus the more accessible stuff gets a much bigger group of people. So when I arrive at a corporate gig, I have the material to survive.
I hear you there. It's like but from like an artistic standpoint, do you ever feel like you did mention like other people being like, "Oh, you're a sellout," but have you ever had that conversation with yourself, like where you're like, "Fuck, am I a sellout?" Or like, are you literally
Well, my
just like,
puppets did go to court
yeah,
to fight white supremacy. So if I'm selling out, it's, I'm fine with it. No, I don't think that's a fair. I think
I'm just saying like as an artist,
no,
essentially,
I
like,
have a strong.
have
No,
you,
no, I'm very clear. At the Edinburgh Festival, I went to a event to sell the Adelaide Fringe Festival to all the artists at Edinburgh. And the host, amazing Australian comic, very, very, very progressive, very interesting act. He said, his words were, "We're here to celebrate the genius of Australian art." And I wanted to freaking murder him, man. I was like, yeah, it's really easy to. Your arts festival has its own event selling itself here. Our National Arts Festival wouldn't dream of that.
yeah, because the funding got cut.
There's no funding. Even when they had funding, there's no way. We have no money. Our people are poor as fuck. So this, like, I'm a progressive artist, is a very wealthy position to take
Yeah.
within comedy that really only works in developed world economy. So this is why the arrogance of like, UK comedy, comedy industry is the best on earth. Yeah, when you steal half of Africa's gold, you have an economy that can cope with that. That's well done, you middle class.
Yeah.
At least Stuart Lee admits I'm the most middle class comedian,
Yeah.
aware that this kind of artistic concept in comedy is is a very privileged position to take. If you live in a very poor country where your fans are very poor, and my fans are very poor. I had one guy message me, standing the show in Pretoria, and he says, "I really want to see your show, but bro, I have no money. Here's a ticket."
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to give him bro a ticket. But do you have a way for me to get home? It's like, so bro, I'll just sleep in the bathroom. That's South African comedy. That's who our audiences are. And I mean, obviously, there's middle class people, but so this holier than thou, I'm an artist and you're just a jokesmith. I think that's the most arrogant bullshit that middle class privileged first world crap. No, I'll put in the stuff that takes me over the edge. So I can't do a cruise ship. I literally had the cruise ship tell me I can't do the cruise ship. So
But
I'm too much edge.
Like,
No, not that cruise ship. No, not that cruise ship. No, no, not that cruise ship. No, I can do South African cruise ships because our people are used to our stuff. I mean, more like kind of where there's 80% Americans and they don't want to hear anything that makes them push them as far.
Yeah,
as
they're on a cruise ship for a reason.
yeah, they're there to escape all of that. So that edge is still in my show. So I enjoy the fact that it's fun, and so for me, it's artistically interesting to have a colonialism joke next to a bee, and next to, I mean, a mosquito puppet who's German making jokes about how, like dad jokes,
Yeah.
the silliest jokes. I think that having those in the
And
same
then
room.
Miss Dixon's basically like an insult comic.
Yeah,
Like,
insult comment, old school teacher making the silliest freaking about his wife and all this stuff, and that will be juxtaposed with the commentary on social dynamics and so on. So I just enjoy that complexity.
Yeah.
But yeah, that thing of so the concept of being like an artist in comedy has for me become like you have the advantage of it in a very wealthy comedy environment. I mean, I said this because I took the autistic show to Edinburgh. I mean, I created that show, which is where I self-reflected on race and just said, "Are you racist?" And I went, "No," because I have an award from Ahmed Gachard of fighting racism. And then he went for spent an hour to the point at the end. I go, "Hello, my name's Conrad and I'm a racist." And the very progressive kind of aware, like I remember an author from London who'd come up to Edinburgh for like 2 days in the middle of the week, loved it. Those guys loved it. The list, super sharp. The only woman who reviewed me, loved it. But the guy from Entertainment Now, hated it.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel a bit bad, and I'm not sure if that's the point of comedy. What is Mr. I Kiss Your Ass? What's the point of comedy?
But it's just so funny because like, isn't that a conversation that's like 40 years old at least in England? So why?
No,
like,
it's not. They're not having the conversation at all. There was nothing.
I'm just saying, like,
Nothing
with
that
guys
really
like
pushed
Stuart
it.
Lee, like, him and the critics have had like back and forth for a
Yes,
while.
but Stuart Lee, I
Because he
mean, he's
deconstructs the
incredible.
art
He
form.
deconstructs, but he does it within their world.
Sure.
to take a sheep farmer from Yorkshire and try to explain to him how the NHS itself is a product of racism, how the colonialism gave you the leg up you have now. I mean, and literally in the show, I explain that the UK stole $45 trillion from India during colonialism over 300 years there. That is 17 times the UK's GDP. So just GDP is how much a whole country earns in a year. So imagine you didn't have to work for 17 years. Just us. For 17 years,
You'll have quite a leg up.
you
Yeah.
have a massive, imagine a whole country got that. As of course your industrial revolution started early. You had 17 years to fuck around. So the joke goes, so India raised a little white kid called England that wasn't theirs. They did a reverse Angelina Jolie. So that's the material I was telling them. And we go, are you being woke? And it's like, but I'm not trying to. And then I
If it
explain,
works to just explain history.
that's literal history. And then there's a joke in the show that goes, oh, you're saying it's my fault. I was like, no, racism is like a kid in Crocs. The kid didn't decide to wear Crocs. Its mother put it in Crocs. We're only judging you if you're still wearing Crocs. That was the whole show. It cut off every avenue where you're going, it's not my fault. You're blaming me. You're making me guilty. It cut all of that off and said, here's the facts. And for your general punter, it was way ahead of what they were way ahead of what they were capable of dealing with. And that was literally the feedback I was getting and what I was told. And then I'd have some rooms where there'd be one or two people of color, some progressive, and then killer show, destroyed. So as far as the artistic side, I went and gave them. I mean, Stuart Lee's whole thing is in Michael McIntyre gives them warm porridge. So for me, as a leverage. As far as race, Stuart Lee's also warm porridge. You're not really threatening them.
Yeah.
So threaten them, there's like an uncomfortability and tension. So, and the other side of that is I need to make my attention accessible to them. I need to make this understanding accessible to them. And I did overestimate how progressive the country was. And the reason that happened is because I went to Angel Comedy Club in Islington.
Yeah, that's a great,
beautiful,
beautiful. I've thought about doing that here, like basically just pulling with people, buying a place, making it a comedy club, and making it pay as you leave, basically, like whatever you want. Like that's the concept.
It's beautiful. I know I didn't know that's how it worked. I honestly don't know. I just know it's like it's amazing. It feels like a good club in Cape Town as far as the progressiveness of their audience, and they're much more aware comedically.
It's a very socialist like kind of enterprise.
Things, It's how comedy was in Comedy for the People, by the People, Cape Comedy Collective, 1999. So what happened was I'd lost my voice. This is just pre-COVID. I'd lost my voice.
It's not good as a ventriloquist.
No. So Chester and I sounded the same. It was, so Chester's first joke was, the white guy lost his voice. Now that is the revolution. And the audience totally went with it. And they were like, they're on board and ready for us. Like, if this is who's here, if this is who's in Edinburgh, we're going to have a good time. And then I got there and I was like, that's not who's in Edinburgh. This is a cruise ship. This is like a cruise ship gig that's a bit more artistically interesting. Like they are open to interesting concepts, but the core conversation on racism I'm married to a person of color. So when I feel sorry for myself, she just stares at me and goes, do you know the shit I'm putting up with?
Yeah.
And she's not being like a victim or anything, the opposite, in fact. But so it doesn't give, South Africans, there's a little bit more awareness of where we are, I think. And so my experience is that the artistic side, it's a conversation I'm having as I do the shows, but my attitude is very much like, Australian, with a genius Australian art. You have festival after festival. Your comics can go from festival to festival to festival, have packed houses.
Who are on board.
Everyone earns $20 an hour, whatever it is. Everyone can put $10 for a ticket.
Yeah.
So of course you've got great artists because your artists have a funding system.
Yeah.
So
there's a support system.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the fact that most people would have never seen that show? Like it's your artistic show. It's your, not like your magnum opus or anything, but it's this thing that you did like try and craft, and it's like a thesis in a way. And like most theses, like it's not going to get read. But
funny story. I wrote a thesis, and the only person who read it, his name is Dan Ruitz. He's like the world's, he's like South Africa's. He's Steve Hofmeyer's lawyer. That should tell you what you need to know about Dan Ruitz.
That's fucking hilarious.
No, that's fine. What happens is
you're not that precious about it.
Nah. Well, you learn your lessons. So you go, if I'm going to translate this stuff, first of all, I'm going to lose a significant amount of this white audience, where if I just add 2 jokes in the show that get them to think about it, I actually win more, because there was a lot more sugar for the medicine.
Yeah.
You just need more sugar.
Yeah,
is
more
what I
honey, not vinegar.
yeah, just more of it. And also, I think that if I wrote the show while particularly in the States, I think that would be, and just made it a 20-minute set, that I wrote it in the States, then it would be more framed outside the apartheid. Because a lot of the problem with the British is they seem to think that Australia and South Africa is other people. But who do you think these are?
Literally.
Like, they don't get, it's a South African. It's like, my grandparents,
my dad is English. Like,
I had a Scottish guy. It's Scottish. This is my great grandfather's Scottish. What the fuck? He's definitely benefited from apartheid or colonialism.
yeah.
Anyway,
Thanks,
bro.
we are going to head on out, but I just want to ask you one last question before we do. What is a big mistake that you've learned an important lesson from?
Never do podcasts in Woodstock. Decide. Try and have an idea. If the mistake is about questions about comedy, have an idea of what you're working towards. So in other words, when you make the choices you make and you build great material, make sure you know what you're working towards, A, and B, write material that has longevity. So in other words, I've spent years...
Says the most topical comedian.
I know. No, that's why the show has no topical in it. In fact, that's a problem with some little specials. I put the specials out just so they're there, because a lot of people don't know I do a diverse show. But the problem is the first 10 minutes is Chester talking about the politics of that year, which means in 5 years' time, they don't make sense. So...
But it's also like, I find for myself, it's a great time capsule with older comedy, right? Like comedy in the 90s and that, and people making jokes about Bill Clinton and the older George Bush. Like,
I agree.
There's cool context.
I agree. But the problem is that our politics is very specific
to that week.
Not just that, it's got a very small audience.
Sure.
So a lot of white South Africans are just not interested. A lot of South Africans, just generally, aren't interested in politics. But American politics is a massive audience. Plus, just watching Robin Williams' 1986 stuff. There will be some George Bush things, but then he'll go into all sorts of other stuff, versus the first 10 minutes of Chester is just politics. So I'm dialing hard back from that. And I'm also being a bit softer in social media. A little bit softer, yeah.
Yeah. And like Wilcock was saying with the mental health thing earlier, like, how do you deal with all the hate?
Well, there's also lots of love. So and it's the one thing, and also don't read the comments. So there's comes times
you do reply to someone.
I do. I need to not do that. I do, because they're like, really? You're really going to say that? Oh, go read a book. Don't you know anything about colonialism? I've got a master's degree in it. What do you want me to do? Like, it's crazy. So you actually need to not react. And remember that the fan base, the people who like it. I mean, this one video this week, is 70,000 likes.
It's crazy.
So why argue with the person who says, I didn't find it funny? Just ignore them. So don't read the comments is my advice that I should listen to myself today.
That's a big mistake you've learned an important lesson from. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
This has been dope. Thank you.
Your work. No, I appreciate it, bro. Cheers.
Shut.
Kitty.